Welcome to another of our time control online lessons. Today we're going to take a look at how you can be more effective in time control entering your data. We have some time-saving tips for you on how the time control interface works and how you can move through it faster, get on your way with your timesheet complete. There's a number of different things we can show you that you may not have thought of before, including making a timesheet icon on your desktop, setting defaults in the Time Control 6 tabs, being able to copy from a posted week, using the different preloads, setting defaults for rates or even for projects, how to hide or resize columns that you might not use on a regular basis, and how to work inside the interface itself, clicking on different elements of the interface in order to be more effective. All right, let's take a look at the very first one, putting a timesheet icon on your desktop. Time Control works inside of a browser, and you can take any browser URL, just like we're doing here, and we can drag it to our desktop. You put your mouse up on the browser itself, you drag that URL to your desktop, and sure enough, the properties are created immediately, where you have a link that you can rename. It has the icon based on Time Control already, and by double-clicking on that, you go immediately to Time Control. So a faster way to go right to the interface when you want to do that. You can go back and re-look at this by backing up on the video and taking a look at that again. You can do that not just with Time Control, but with any URL that you use on a regular basis. In the Time Control My Accounts area, there is a default for each of the tabs to which you have access. You can set defaults for any tab you have access to. In My Account, for example, you might say, well, when I go into My Account, I'd like to see the Tools area. When I go into the Tools area, I'd like to see My Account. So you can pick for each of those tabs what you'd like. The Home tab is used to be able to set where Time Control will start when you log in. So once you've logged into Time Control, you can choose from any of the functions to which you have access. If you're someone who only enters their timesheet, well, you can start Time Control right in the timesheet entry area. If you're someone who does the same kind of thing all week, or if you're about to have a week very much like last week, you can copy last week's timesheet when you create your new timesheet. You click on Add a Timesheet, and one of your options at the bottom of the screen is to copy from a previous week. You can copy from last week, but you can also, if you do a similar kind of thing often, you can pick a template week that has no hours in it that you've posted for perhaps the first of last year. And be able to use that as your template so that you don't have to select projects and charge codes when you go to create a new timesheet. They'll have been selected for you. In My Accounts, you can actually set up time charges based on personal preferences. So if you often do meetings, or you're often doing travel, or you always do work on a particular project in a particular way, you can go and edit your preloads to preload Time Control each time you start a new timesheet with these particular charges. This means that you won't have to go looking for that project type and that charge item to be able to put them in your timesheet. They'll automatically be there. Remember that when you do choose a personal preload, you have to have set a default rate so Time Control knows how to complete that line. If you're linked to a project management tool like Microsoft Project or Deltek's Open Plan or Primavera, then you can ask your Time Control administrator about resource preloads. Resource preloads come from your assignments in the project schedule and can also fill in your timesheet with information that you were expected to do this week. To avoid having to select a rate each time you enter a line, you can set default values in your My Accounts area. Set a default value for the rate code if that's something that you always have being the same. If you always work on the same project, such as on internal projects, then you can select that as well. It's one less click, one less dialogue that you have to watch, and it can save you several seconds each time you add a line. Time Control allows users to hide fields and resize fields right on the timesheet interface. You can pick fields that you never use and hide them, and we can show you that working right here on the Time Control interface. Here you can see I have quite a number of fields, and if enough that I'm going to have to scroll from left to right to be able to fit them all in. But if I click on the options, I can now say, well, some of these fields are really not of much value to me. Perhaps I don't need the project description, just the project name. And what else might I not need? Well, I don't need that estimate to complete field maybe, and maybe the auditing user field of who entered this line. Let's take a look at that. Those fields disappear, and we have a much better situation. I can resize these fields perhaps to be able to squeeze everything into a space where I won't need to rescroll. But I can see I also have Saturday and Sunday hours on there. Well, back to options. If I remove Saturday and Sunday, it's not like that data disappears. We're just not going to display it at this time. If I ever have a timesheet where I'm going to work on a Saturday, I can go back to options and enter that back in. Well, now I see that I can resize things to give myself a bit more room, and no scrolling would be required. When there's no horizontal scrolling, you're able to move much faster through the timesheet to be able to add your data without having to move back and forth from left to right. Each time you add a line, there are ways to save a little bit of time on a click. For example, when you add a new line and you're still editing the one that you're on, you don't need to save this line and then click append or insert. You can just click append or insert and the save will happen automatically. And on selections, when you have a drop-down list, double-clicking on the selection instead of clicking to select and then clicking OK can save a few seconds each time. Let's take a look at some of this on a screen. So I can use a click, enter my value, click with the mouse, enter a value, and that's one way to enter values in the timesheet. But I can also use the tab keys to go forward and back. If I go tab or shift tab, then I can enter a value, tab, enter a value, tab, enter a value. You can see it's much faster to do it that way. Left and right is done using the tab key and the shift tab key to move back and forth. You can try it yourself on your TimeControl. Instead of clicking on the save button, I can then just click on append. Save is implied. It will be saved and the new line will appear. When I get a drop-down list, such as a list of projects, I can click on select and then OK, or I can just double-click on the selection. In this case, just double-clicking on internal brings me right back to the field. Same thing on charge codes. I can get the list of charge codes, expand my list. Instead of click to select, then click OK, I just double-click on my travel selection and immediately back to the screen. This saves a little bit of time each time you enter a line. A few seconds here and there doesn't sound like much, but when you add that time up over a week, over a year, you may be talking about hours of time that you could have been spent on your way to the weekend instead of entering in your timesheet. So, a few tips on getting through your timesheet faster at the end of the week. Adding a timesheet icon to your desktop so you can get right into TimeControl faster than having to open your browser, find your bookmarks, find TimeControl and go to it. Set tab defaults for your home page and for each of the tabs that you might normally use. Copy from last week or from a template week. Using your personal preloads or using resource preloads if you're linked to a project management system. Setting the defaults for rates or even for projects if you have values that you use all the time. Hiding fields or resizing fields that you might not use often or that you don't need to see all of in order to be able to get no horizontal scrolling in your screen. And then inside the timesheet itself, clicking on append or insert instead of save and then append. Using tab, shift tab to move between cells and double clicking on your selection in a drop-down list instead of clicking to select and clicking OK. All of that's going to save you a little bit of time in using your TimeControl to be more effective. Thanks for your time and good luck with your timesheet this week.